Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Goal Getters.
Good evening, everybody.
This is John. Hey, John, what's going on? My name's John Rossino. This is John Fidel, and here we are for another one. On a you told me just beforehand that we got snow, rain coming tonight.
Yeah, later on tonight. So, batten down the hatches.
Yeah, be prepared. Real quick, I'm going to say something out to Wade. He froze, so he had to shut down and reopen. Just so you know. Okay. Anyhow, we are going to be having a guest here shortly, and there he is. But we'll get to our guest in a moment. Remember our phone number. Our phone number is 716-804-1229. Give us a call. And also go into the message board. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please, feel free. Call in or put them in the message board. Now tonight we're going to be joined here shortly. I'm going to give a little thing about him, John.
Okay.
He's a guy I met years ago. Actually, we were both calling guests of a Leafs postgame show. But Mike was on there a lot. I used to get in sometimes, and that's how we kind of connected. Mike has gone on to do some really cool stuff, really good stuff. He's a pro hockey. He's a member of the Pro Hockey Writers of America. He also now HockeyBuzz.com. That is the premier place for hockey rumors, trades, the whole NHL, anything. Trade deadline, it's unbelievable there. You've seen that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, trade deadline, free agency. You all the news you could want is there at HockeyBuzz.com. Now they do a thing. He's a podcaster too, pretty good. I've been doing it for a long time. Buzzcast with Hockey Buzz. He's editor. He's like I said, podcaster. Just does it all. He does a great Leafs podcast for Leaf fans out there that I really enjoy because I'm a Leaf fan. But no, Mike is we brought him on because there's so much to talk about in the NHL, and you kind of want to sometimes have that someone who's got some inside.
Oh yeah, the inside knowledge of the game. The ins and outs they know about. So
yeah, and the movement, the player movement that you just can't. Sometimes you just can't figure out.
You got the right guy, so
yeah, but you can't figure it out. Like we're going to get into this with Mike. Like we were talking a little bit before the show, and we were kind of talking. That Montreal Canadiens situation was a bizarre.
It's still mind-boggling what happened there. It's like it happens as Claude Julien, and every 2 years he gets dumped during the season. It's like.
It's weird. And Kirk Muller was even more shocking to me. But I that's why Mike's here because I don't know why the hell that all went on. We're also when we bring Mike in, we're going to be talking about a lot of players and possible movement and teams that might be selling, all that stuff. There's so much to get to. And wait, are we? Ready? Okay,
yeah,
we're going to bring.
Second.
Yeah, go ahead. We're going to bring Mike Agello in, like I said. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, which is a good idea, it's at Mike in Buffalo. Because if you follow him on Twitter, you can get all this information up to date within seconds. Go to Mike in Buffalo, and you'll get all the inside information that he has, and he'll put it out there for you. So, John, are you ready? All right, here's Mike.
1 second, so he's audio on,
All right. Got him ready? All right, Mike. Hey, how's it
Mike,
going,
how you doing?
Good evening, gentlemen. I hope you are doing well.
Oh, yeah. Doing all right.
Doing okay tonight.
Heard about some bad weather coming, but,
What's new?
I guess it's Western New York.
What's new?
Yeah, right. Mike, are you still in Western New York?
Yep, live in Cheektowaga. Lived here all my life. Don't plan on moving anywhere else unless it gets colder.
Right. Yeah, right. Oh, man, I was just telling everybody on here, I mean, it was years ago when we kind of like met through, it was like a post-game show, a Maple Leaf post-game show. I think it was like AM 640 or something.
Yeah, Leaf Talk with Andy Frost.
Yes, Andy Frost. And your great conversations with Bill Waters, those were always good, when you could get in to talk to him.
The Leafs launch. The funny thing is I still am in contact with those guys via social media. Bill was semi-retired living in Florida, but he comes up to Ontario during the summer. And Andy Frost was let go by Q107 a couple years ago, but his son Morgan is in the NHL playing for the Philadelphia Flyers. And Jeff Merrick was also the co-host of Leafs Lunch. He's doing great stuff with Sportsnet, so I'm in touch with all of them. And it was a great time to be a caller, but now I've moved on to doing actually professional media stuff, so it's all great.
No, Mike, I was telling John on the way up here to the studio that the way you went from that to where you dove right in, and it was really admirable because some of us want to do it and some of us do it, and you did it, Mike, and it's really impressive. And I remember back to the talk show days. It was so primitive, and now you look at. Great job, man.
I'm very fortunate, and it is possible that a guy like Steve Dangle, who started his own podcasts and webcasts, and he's turned it into, he wrote a book. He's turned it into something where he's making podcasts and making money doing it, and he loves it what he does, and so do I. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. Well, Mike, let's get into some stuff.
Okay.
Since we're here and you're in Cheektowaga, we're in Lockport, we're going to talk about the Sabres for a bit. Sabres are 4-6-1 in their last 11, John, right?
Yes.
About 7 points out of the playoff spot, maybe 6?
6 points out.
Okay. So that's where they stand. You got Skinner, a healthy scratch, 3 straight games, horrible contract. Jack Eichel, I don't know, and Taylor Hall. And Mike, I want to get your take on the Sabres and what could possibly happen from here. Can they be a playoff team? Give me your take on them.
Well, I wasn't optimistic going into the season because I really thought that in spite of all the moves that Kevin Adams made, they really didn't address the areas that they really needed to address. I mean, I liked the acquisition of Eric Stahl because I think the plan before this season was to put a young guy like Dylan Cousins at second-line center, and that would have been a disaster. But I still, to this day, even though he's a great player and a former MVP, I didn't understand the signing of Taylor Hall because their problem wasn't a scoring left winger. They had that in Jeff Skinner, but we can see from what's going on right now that Ralph Kruger doesn't like Jeff Skinner, doesn't like how he plays, and he has reflected that in demoting him to the fourth line and then healthy scratching him the last 3 games. So, right now they're 6-8-3. They're dead last, tied for dead last in the NHL. Is it possible they get things in line and make a run for a playoff spot? Anything's possible right now on a 56-game schedule. But I honestly think that, Eichel, he was injured in the game on Thursday against New Jersey, before the game, in the pregame skate. He's apparently been dealing with injury issues all year, even though Ralph Kruger said he wasn't dealing with injury issues. He was. And now he's got a lower body injury to go along with his upper body injury. And even more importantly, Linus Ullmark gets hurt. And he was having a pretty good season, and they really don't have a option after him because Carter Hutton is a terrible goaltender. And if they have to use him a lot, they will go to the bottom of the standings, which they're at right now. So I'm not optimistic, and the trade deadline is April the 12th, and if they stay where they are right now, I could see them trade off Hall and Stahl and a few other players.
Like this weekend, we got back-to-backs against Philly, and I think if they don't come out like 3 out of 4 points or something like that, I think that's when you start unloading players because it's not going to cut it. And they'll be like 8 or 10 points behind.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
I can see a long losing streak right now.
Yeah, I think you're right in your assessment. I believe they've only won 2 games since they came back from the COVID suspension of play, and those games were both against New Jersey, who they're battling for the bottom spot in the East Division. It's going to be difficult to get any points out of Flyers right now. I know that they're having their struggles as well, but Eichel has all but been ruled out of the 2 games on the weekend, and so has Ullmark. So that means you're either starting Jonas Johansson or Carter Hutton in goal, and that means probably Eric Stahl is your number 1 center, and Casey Middlestad is your number 2 center. So you're going up against a team that is, had some defensive problems, and Carter Hart has had some goaltending issues, but they're a good team and they're a playoff team. So it's going to be really difficult for the Sabres. I think if they're lucky, they get 2 out of 4.
It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Like Carter Hutton, it's like 36 years old.
Yeah, I thought he was done last year.
Right.
And you bring him back, and I think it brought the team down when he came back. It's like I don't think nobody wanted him around.
It's tough to play probably in front of that. I don't know. Mike's right. That guy. It's going to get ugly. And but my next question for you, Mike, and this is just an overall thing before I get into those other players that we were bringing up with the Sabres. How much of this, and this is a broad question, in your opinion, is at the at ownership, because it's just amazing to me that they have gone through so many people. The players are, the Skinner deal. That's like Clarkson all over again. And how much do you put on the Pagulas for what's going on here?
Well, I think that they contribute to the chaos that has been with the Sabres since they took ownership. I think it was in 2011. I think it's been 11 general managers and coaches. It's something like that. I may be off by 1 or 2, but just the fact that you're saying 11 coaches and general managers in the span of a decade is pretty bad. Now, I think that the change from Jason Botterill to Kevin Adams was essentially Botterill wanted to go one direction, the ownership wanted to go a different direction, and they said, okay, well, we're going to get somebody in there like Kevin Adams who we can tell what we want, and he will do it. So, and somebody who will go along with what Ralph Kruger wants. And if you look at the additions that they made during the off season, adding a guy like Tobias Reeder, who played for Kruger in, I think, Team Europe at the World Cup, and he was coach of Taylor Hall in Edmonton, and a couple other players who he was familiar with. Everything was sort of aimed at what Kruger wanted. And that's good in a sense, because you want the coach to have, if he's going to cook the dinner, he should buy the groceries. But I look at this team and they're just fundamentally flawed. And like I said before, I'll use an analogy that as a Leaf fan you'll recognize right away. If you remember, about a decade or so ago, they went out when they had Brian McCabe and Thomas Caberlet on defense. They paid $5 million for Pavel Kubina, which was dumb because they already had 2 high-priced defensemen. And then they had Darcy Tucker on left wing, who was one of the better power play specialists, and they go out and sign Jason Blake as a 40-goal scorer. It was the same type of player. And that's, in a way, what they did with Taylor Hall. They signed Taylor Hall for 1 year at $8 million when you already had a $9 million winger in Jeff Skinner. And this situation with Skinner and Kruger, it makes no sense because Skinner is going nowhere. He's got a no-move clause. He's under contract for 6 more years. He's making $9 million. Nobody in their right mind is going to trade for him. So he's going to try to outlast Kruger and wait till Kruger gets fired. And if they keep playing this way, that may be fairly soon.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
we were just talking. Remember, you were saying that on the way up here about Kevin Adams.
Yeah.
And,
he's being told what to do.
Yeah.
Or he's gone too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'll tell you, what a difference between the 2 franchise, Bills, the Sabres, how one is and how the other is being built.
Well,
I want to ask directly about a couple. First, let's talk about Skinner. We know he can't be traded. That is Clarkson. Even worse. So, what do you have any idea what the problem is between him and the coaching staff? Is it? I've read nothing that has anything to tell me why there has been this 3-game scratch, because you would fear they want him in the lineup. But what do you know, Mike?
Well, I can only speculate based on what I've heard, but it sounds like, Kruger has said that he doesn't, essentially he wants all of his players to play sort of a two-way game. And if you look at Skinner's career, he's a 25 to 30 goal scorer, but he's never been somebody who plays, defensively. He's a guy who stretches defenses, who is a really good goal scorer. And you saw that the year that he scored 40 playing on Jack Eichel's wing. And as soon as, I think he was signed before Kruger was named head coach. And then the 2 years that Kruger has been head coach, they moved him to the second line off of Eichel's line. He scored 14 goals in his second in that year in like 50 some odd games, and he was moved to the second line and didn't have a center to play with. And then this year he's played exclusively, except when somebody gets injured during the game, he's played on the fourth line. Jeff Skinner is not a fourth line guy. I don't know if it's a personal thing. I think it's got to be because even though he's only had one assist in 14 games, you look at him and he is trying out there. So, but he's not playing with talent. He's not playing with Eichel. He's not playing with Stahl. He's playing with Curtis Lazar. And, God bless Curtis Lazar. He's a good workman-like player, but he doesn't create. He just works and tries to get the occasional goal. And Skinner doesn't belong on that line, and now he's been scratched healthy the last 3 games. All I know is that Don Meehan, his agent, called Kevyn Adams yesterday. This is according to Lance Lasowski from the Buffalo News, and didn't want to go into the details of the conversation, but I am sure he's like saying to Kevyn Adams, what the hell's going on? Because Jeff Skinner is too talented of a player to be having this game being played with him, and I think it's going to cost Kruger his job, because if they are playing a guy hardly any minutes when he is in the lineup and he's making $9 million and he's going to be here, they're not going to buy him out. I mean, it's a situation that's just not good overall for the Sabres.
And we're talking with, as our guest, Mike Agello. Find him at Mike in Buffalo on Twitter. He is with HockeyBuzz.com, reporter, buzzcast, all kinds of podcasting, anything, everything. Great, very good writer. Mike, the next thing another player I wanted to bring up to you, and this guy's like every year it's the same story, Jack Eichel. We always hear of his discontent. I don't know, does he really want to leave? Mike, any insight, anything you know about Eichel, and if there really is that thought that he wants to go? I don't know. I really don't know if he does or doesn't, but
it's hard to say. One day he's happy, one day he's not. Then
he just wants to win, I'm sure.
I mean, in the offseason, he didn't want to be here. Then he wanted to be here. I don't know what's going on there. It's like it's every other day with Eichel. It's like I just don't like his attitude. I don't think he should be captain anymore. That's my opinion. And I don't know. They got to do something soon. They got to.
Yeah. So, Mike, what do you know?
Well, I mean, consider this. He was drafted second overall in the 2015 draft. 1 pick after Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid has made the playoffs once. He probably will make the playoffs again this year, although I have doubts because Edmonton is a very imperfect club. The following year, Austin Matthews was drafted first overall by the Leafs, and they've made the playoffs every year, even though they haven't had any success in the playoffs. He sees that, and he is on a team that has not made the playoffs since 2011. He's 24 years old. He's wasting his prime years on a team that just can't seem to put things together. So, I mean, when he talked at the end of last season, he expressed some frustration. I think like anybody who, he's getting paid $10 million a year, so the money is not the problem. The problem is that the organization hasn't put things together to be able to win. And, it's been, how many general managers and coaches just with him? He seems to like Ralph Kruger. Kruger is apparently a player-friendly coach with everybody except Jeff Skinner. But right now there's no success, and the question is, at what point? And it's something that everybody is expecting. At what point is he just going to say, "Get me the hell out of here"? they've been asking that question about McDavid in Edmonton, and now with Edmonton having some success, he's probably going to be happy to stay there. But that's the thing. It's like I think that the main task with the Pagulas is to be able to keep Jack Eichel here, is to get him the players around him that can help them to win. But they haven't seemed to be able to do that, and I think if it keeps going like this, by this time next season, he's going to be asking to be traded.
And by what is he now? Is he in his? What's he have? 6 years left, Mike? On his
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 years, I believe. 5 years.
So yeah, you're getting close to that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're getting close to where he, because then it won't be so bad if you're trading him 4 years on the deal. I don't know. These long-term ones are so tough, I guess, especially in time of COVID. I don't know how anything. Well, obviously Skinner's never gonna move. My next one that I want to get to, Mike, from the Sabres, and you touched on him a little bit, and I also feel it was an odd one, is Taylor Hall. Any thoughts of where he could go? Because there's no doubt he's going. There's no way. Why would you? You're just going to lose him anyways in free agency. So
He said he wanted to be here though, so
he wants to sign a long-term deal.
yeah, with Buffalo. So who knows what's going to happen there? So
What a weird situation, Mike. I want you to tell me about Taylor Hall, because it's kind of a weird. I don't know. He wears out. I don't know if you want to say he wears out his welcome. It's just odd. Mike, let me know what you know about Taylor Hall and what to expect maybe in April.
Well, there was some talk. I believe it was Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman who reported that Hall. There was mutual interest between Hall and the Sabres to sign an extension, but I'm skeptical of that for one simple reason. He may like it here, and that's fine, and they have tons of cap space next year. And the Sabres may be one of the few teams that could pay him more than what he's making right now. But with the Skinner contract there, with Kyle Oposo making $6 million, and you have to address all these other issues, they also have to sign Rasmus Dahlin to a new deal. How can you sign Hall to a long-term contract when you have Oposo under contract for 2 more years and Skinner under contract for 6 more years? I would think they would have to be able to either buy out or move one of those players to be able to sign Hall and be able to make the additions in other areas they need. If they don't do that, he's got a no-move clause, so he could simply say, I'm not going to go anywhere. I like Buffalo, and then go free agent in the summer. I think he probably will agree to be traded, but probably only to a specific place. There's been speculation about Calgary because he's from Calgary, but they're in a situation right now where they're fighting for a playoff spot. So maybe there's a fit there, but I don't know if like a trade for like Johnny Gaudreau makes any sense, because Gaudreau is a free agent after next year. So I would think the Sabres would probably try to recruit prospects and draft picks for Hall. But it's going to be tough for any team to fit $8 million under their salary cap, so they're probably going to have to retain salary. But if he wants to move, they should find some teams that will be interested.
Any defensemen on the Sabres that might be on the move, you would think, in April, or no? Because I know Risto's always, it's always a rumor, but I think they should be happy with him. It's a good contract and everything.
he's in
So
protocol right now.
Oh, he's back. Is he?
Yes.
Yeah, he skated yesterday, and he's he had a really serious bout with COVID, and it seems like he's out of it now. I don't think they're going to trade him because he's actually played well under Kruger. So, but the thing is, the Sabres have had a massive injuries on the blue line. Will Borgen is out for 6 weeks. Jake McCabe is out for the year. I do think that they might trade Brandon Montour. He's a UFA at the end of the year. He doesn't really strike me as somebody who's been a difference maker, and that might mitigate what they get back for him. But other than Montour, I don't really see them moving anybody on the blue line, and simply because they don't have a lot of numbers there. You have to be able to put out 6 defensemen for the rest of the year. But I don't think they're going to move Ristolainen, and they're obviously not going to move the young guys like Dahlin or Yoki Haru. So I think Montour would probably be it.
Well, he was almost gone this year, Montour, before the season started when he came back.
Yep.
All right, you know what? We're gonna. Our guest here is Mike Agello from HockeyBuzz.com, and he does Buzzcast, a Leafs podcast too for us Leaf fans. That is a must. If you're a Leafs fan, it's a must listen. It's as good as it gets. I don't even think there's nothing on radio as good as that podcast. Mike, let's move on to some other teams real quick because we
Sure.
spent a lot of time with the Sabres. The Montreal Canadiens and the firing of Claude Julien and Kirk Muller. The new head coach is Dominique Ducharme. I hope I said his name right. And
Yep.
Mike, Marc Bergevin. Wow, what an aggressive move because they were 5-4-2 when they did it. What do you know, Mike? Because it was shocking to us.
Yeah, aggressive is one word. Panic, idiotic. I can think of a few more synonyms. It was just to me a bad move. Claude Julien is a really good veteran coach who, maybe his message was getting stale with the Canadians, but I think it was a panic move by Bergevin. He spent a lot in free agency. He made a lot of moves during the offseason, signing Toffoli, trading for Josh Anderson, signing Edmondson, the defenseman, getting Jake Allen to back up Carey Price. And the beginning of the season, they had a lot of success, and then they ran into a rough patch over the last 8 or 9 games. And most of that, I think, falls on the shoulders of Carey Price, who's not playing well right now. But I think it was a panic move to fire Julien. Ducharme is a good coach. He coached Canada for the World Juniors, but I really think that this move means that Bergevin knows that if they don't have success this year, that his job may be in jeopardy, and that's what I think was behind it. So it was a desperate move, and after one game, it doesn't look good because they were just as disorganized against Winnipeg last night as they had been throughout the month of February. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I still think they'll make the playoffs because all the teams below Toronto, Edmonton, and Winnipeg sort of have major flaws, so one of them will make it, but I don't know which one.
We were kind of talking about this off air. Montreal started out 7-1-2, and I didn't feel that they were that good. I'm not saying they weren't good, but I just didn't feel like they were that, going to be fighting for that. I knew eventually they're going to drop back. There's no way that was going to continue with that team. Mike, that must have caused a problem up there in Montreal because either like you said before, they're crazy up there. So, was that was the worst thing that could have happened to them? Maybe was that start?
Yes, I think in part. I mean, I do know that some of the Montreal media believed that all the moves that they made during the offseason was going to propel them to first place in the North Division. And early on, I mean, the funny thing is that they had success in the bubble, in the playoffs, beating Pittsburgh, and then giving Philadelphia a tough time. And a lot of that was based on Price playing well and 2 young centers in Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi playing well above their not abilities because they're both talented kids, but well in advance of their age. And I think that the bad assumption was, and I was open to it because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe these kids are ready to take a step and play first line, second line center in the NHL. But the Bergevin assumed that if I put veterans around those guys, that I'll have success. I think their defense is really good, and the goaltending tandem of Price and Allen are really good. But Kotkaniemi and Suzuki go up every night against Scheifele and Dubois in Winnipeg, against Tavares and Matthews in Toronto, against McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton, against Pettersson in Vancouver. It's too much for them, and that's the problem. So those kids haven't been able to handle that job, and that's probably the main reason, along with Carey Price, why they're not having success.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, those kids, and they're so good too.
Yeah.
Those two. Suzuki, what? Wow, 20 years old. I mean, these guys.
Still young. You got a lot of ways to go
Yeah.
before they
Oh,
develop.
definitely. No, let's go to the other one of the. Well, right now, the Maple Leafs are. I think they're still.
Yeah.
Number one in the entire league. 15-4-2, right? I think we are.
Correct.
First overall.
They are. I almost said we. I want to know what you know about Austin Matthews. The injury, I did see that it was something he's been dealing with even before the season started. What do you know about Matthews and how long he's going to be out, if he's going to be out?
Sheldon Keefe this morning said it was going to be a day-to-day thing. It sounds like he may play tomorrow night against Edmonton. I think it's just a sort of chronic thing he's been dealing with. He had this wrist issue last season. Maybe it's something that they have to address in the offseason with surgery, but I think, they gave him off from practice today, and I think he'll probably play in Edmonton. And according to the reports, so will Joe Thornton and Jake Muzzin, and Jack Campbell will step in goal for Michael Hutchinson, and Anderson is making the trip with the Leafs, so he at some point will return to the lineup for the Leafs. And obviously they need Anderson and Campbell back in net because Hutchinson, he's a good third goaltender, but you don't want him playing major blocks of games. The Leafs, I don't think there's many reasons to complain about the way that they played this year. I mean, they're at the top of the league. I mean, the only thing I think you have to be concerned about is sort of John Tavares taking a step back. I just think he's in a slump right now. I think he'll end up – he's still got, I think, 16 points, so he'll probably end up near a point per game. I think their problems have been injuries, and Wayne Simmons played great, but then he got hurt, and Joe Thornton was playing great, then he got hurt. And they just seem to be dealing with a lot of injuries. But being able to weather the storm in terms of those injuries. Now, if they lose somebody big like Matthews, then that's a bigger challenge. I mean, losing Anderson, if it was a serious injury, then it would be something they really would have to address via trade or worry about. But it seems like it's a minor thing, and he's going to come back. But the William Nylander thing, and he's sort of a touchstone for criticism. He had a great game against Calgary, scored the tying goal and the winning goal, and of course, all the people who love Nylander are saying, "Here, that's the guy." I mean, yeah, but you'd like to see that guy more than 3 or 4 games a year. You want to see that guy play like that every game or as close to every game as possible, and that's the thing that's infuriating about Nylander is that he doesn't play like that when he can be a difference maker, when he can, be a game breaker. He just doesn't seem to either want or be able to do it, and I keep saying that Nylander, his days in Toronto may be numbered simply because of cap reasons over the next few years. They need to sign players like Hyman and Anderson maybe and Morgan Riley the following year, and they don't have the cap space if they keep Nylander. So I think Nylander, this might be his last year in Toronto.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I want to ask you one more thing about Nylander.
We'll take him.
You guys had a Nylander for a little bit, yeah.
He's doing well in Chicago.
Now, with Nylander, Mike, Austin Matthews, the steps, obviously, he's taken defensively, unbelievable, the way he plays, uses his body now, the whole thing. Nylander, what do you see when he doesn't have the puck?
Well, that's the problem. He's virtually invisible. I think that he was benched for the last 10 minutes of the third period last Saturday against Montreal, and from Sheldon Keefe's input, it was basically, we need to hold the lead, and we can't trust Nylander out there. He was trying to light a fire under him, and as you saw from what he did against Calgary on Wednesday, when you light a fire under him, he responds. But defensively, he's a strong guy. He's a great skater. He's got good offensive ability. There's no reason why he can't be at least effective defensively. But there are times when I see replays of him just standing around looking, and it's befuddling because all that is effort, and sometimes I just don't think the effort is there. He's really, really inconsistent, and when you have a player with that kind of ability, the inconsistency is what drives you mad.
Yeah. Now, one last thing on the Maple Leafs, because we got to get to something else, and I know people are going to get mad. Secondary scoring, they're top heavy. We know that they have to go with guys, Engvall, those types. Is anything going to happen, you think, with them to try to address that in April?
Well, I think they're hoping that the return of everybody like Simmons and Thornton may be back tomorrow night. Um, the talk out there is that they're going to try to make a trade for a top six forward so they can sort of move players down in the lineup and have more depth. Um, the one name that's popped out there was Michael Granlund, but I think there will be others out there. I mean, Nashville's selling, and apparently they were interested in Granlund during the offseason, but the price tag was too high. But they could be in on Bobby Ryan. They could be in on Eric Stahl if the Sabres trade him. Stahl could fit in as a third-line center or a winger. I mean, they have a lot of options. Now, the thing is, they don't have a lot of cap space, but I do think that the speculation out there is that that's where Kyle Dubas is looking. He's looking to add a scoring forward that he can put on that second line with Tavares and Nylander, and then have Zach Hyman play on a third line and sort of move everybody down and have really effective third and fourth lines. And if they can do that, then they will be tough when it comes to playoff time.
Now I'm going to move off of them, and I want to go to the Pittsburgh Penguins with our guy, with all the truculence. Brian Burke is there. He's also got Ron Hextall there, which is crazy to see him with this, almost at the Steelers, with the Penguins. Yeah. Here's a name I never thought I'd ask about. Sidney Crosby. Is there anything that, I don't know. I've heard some things, just on radio and stuff. What do you know? Is there any, what's Burke look like he's going to do you think?
Well, when Burke and Hextall took over as president and GM respectively, they basically said, we're going to wait the year and see how things turn out. Now, since they took over, Pittsburgh has played better. I would think in that division it's them or Columbus fighting for one of the two bottom spots in the in that division. Sorry, not Columbus. Either them or maybe New Jersey. Sorry, I'm thinking of the other division. But I think that they've sort of straightened out. Their issues are goaltending. Tristan Jarry is sort of unproven as a number one, but they had to make that move to trade Matt Murray because they really could afford to sign him. I think Burke will try to tweak the roster, maybe add some toughness, like you said, with his want of pugnacity and testosterone and truculence. But I think after the year, with the cap issues, you might see a Letang or a Malkin even get traded. But I don't think Sidney Crosby is going to go anywhere. Sidney Crosby will only go somewhere if Sidney Crosby wants to go somewhere. And everything that I've heard says he wants to stay in Pittsburgh and be a Penguin for the rest of his career. So I don't think that's going to happen.
He's a lifer there, for sure.
Wow, what a play. It was just amazing because I was hearing that. Oh, I think it was on Fan 590 today, and I can't even remember what show, but his name was kind of being, I think it was just in almost like fantasy type hockey, the stuff when to move him. Here's another team interested in because they got to be selling is the Detroit Red Wings. Anything there? I heard Bobby Ryan, Luke Glendening. I don't know. What else do you know about the Red Wings and what they could possibly be trying to sell?
Well, we talked with Kevin Allen, formerly of USA Today, who's based in Detroit, on the Buzzcast today. And he mentioned, a couple other names, possibly besides Glendening and Ryan, maybe a Sam Gagne, but he's more of a taxi squad guy, a depth guy that teams might add in case somebody gets injured in the playoffs. He's an experienced guy and he could step in. Mark Stahl is another name who they got from the Rangers last year. His difficulty is he's got a $5.7 million cap hit, so more than likely Steve Yzerman would have to retain 50% of that salary to be able to move him someplace. And even at a 2.8 something salary hit, that's a lot for a guy who would basically be a bottom pairing defenseman. So I think that would probably be the extent of it. Those guys, maybe if somebody's looking for a goaltender, Jonathan Bernier, but he's no more than a backup, so and it's an inexpensive one. So I think that would be the extent of their moving.
Yeah. No, I always liked Luke Glendening. I don't know why. I always liked the way he played, but I don't.
He's a good face-off guy.
Yes, I've always liked the way he played. A couple other names. This was a name that I was surprised to hear too, and it must be cap reason. I don't know. Jake DeBrusk. What do you know about him and the the possibility to get traded or what from the Bruins?
Well, DeBrusk's name was out there in terms of being traded when he was negotiating his new contract. He signed a 2-year deal at a little over $3.6 million. I believe the mentality of the Bruins is that what we see out of Jake DeBrusk is all that there is, and there's probably not going to be any great growth. And if they improve, if they need to, supposedly they're in the chatter of maybe trading for Matthias Ekholm from Nashville. If they do that, then the salaries are comparable, and Nashville is looking for scoring. I don't think they're really out there trying to sell Jake DeBrusk for a bag of pucks, but if they can improve in other areas, I think they believe they have enough forward depth with young guys like Stevnica and Trent Frederick that they could afford to trade DeBrusk and bring in some defensive help. After Chara left, I think they need to increase their experience on the blue line, and Ekholm would do that.
Mike Agello's here with us from HockeyBuzz.com. I go to his Twitter at Mike in Buffalo. You get all this information, all day, every day, all night. So it's the place to go for this stuff. Then go to Mike in Buffalo at Mike in Buffalo.
I was studying it this afternoon.
Yeah, no, you got to go there. That's the place, and it's incredible when you have free agency day. And I mean that's like a holiday, and it's great. I can't wait to get back to that normalcy where it's, on Canada Day.
Yeah.
I hope it ever goes back to that. Mike, now I want to ask you, and I really appreciate you sticking way longer than I thought you were gonna. Are
no
you
problem.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good. No problem.
Great. I got some coaches that I want to ask you about the hot seat and all that. And one of them I really like this guy, but maybe it's because he was a player with the Leafs. Travis Green and the Canucks. And I'll give you the three that I thought of: the Flames, Jeff Ward, and the Rangers and David Quinn.
Yep.
Anyone else? Anything you know? What do you think?
I mean, those are definitely at the top of the list. Green, because he's in the final year of his contract, and it's conspicuous that he, did not get an extension. There has to be a lot of disappointment after the success that Vancouver had in the playoffs that they've taken a step back. But I think that's laid at the feet of Jim Benning because some of the moves that they made in terms of letting Markstrom go, replacing him with Braden Holtby, letting Tanev go, replacing him with Nate Schmidt. I mean, they're just not conducive. They had issues defensively as it was, and you gave up probably their best defensive defenseman in Chris Tanev, so that was a tough move for them. So he may be in trouble, but I don't think they're going to fire him during the season, and unless they fire him for somebody on their staff. A lot of people think that that was one of the reasons why it was surprising that Julian got fired, because there are a lot of people out there that are saying that these teams don't want to incur the extra cost of hiring another coach when they would probably, in a year where budget constraints with COVID and no fans and things of that nature, teams don't want to make that move if they have to pay a new coach. Whereas if they fire an existing coach and hire somebody on the staff, like Ducharme in Montreal, that doesn't cost them anything. So I think Green is in trouble, but I don't think he would lose his job until the end of the year. From what I know in New York, David Quinn is definitely in trouble, but they've run into a slew of injuries. Trouba, Keandre Miller's got COVID. I mean, a lot of things. So I think that if he gets fired, it'll wait until the end of the year. Jeff Ward in Calgary. Calgary's been disappointing, so I think that's a good possibility as well. I'll add Dallas Eakins in Anaheim as somebody who might have problems because Anaheim simply just can't score, and this is his second year that they really had not a lot of success. So I think he may be in trouble, but that's about it. I mean, 4 or 5 and I have to add this one because he's in the final year of his contract, although I don't think he'll get fired. But I'm not sure John Tortorella is going to stay in Columbus after this year.
Oh,
No,
wow.
he would be. I know you've always wanted him back at Buffalo.
Yeah, never happened, no.
Yeah, right. No, Jack Eichel. I don't know what would go on with that. That would be interesting.
If you want Jack Eichel to leave Buffalo, hire Tortorella.
Yeah, I can't see it,
There you
right?
go.
No, definitely. Now, what about, I think you already said it, but general managers, obviously Bergeron is going to be on that hot seat. Is there others that you have heard or think of other than the three? I mean, I guess these coaches along with general managers. Anything else?
Other than Bergevin, I think the only one that might be in trouble would be Jim Benning in Vancouver, but he just signed an extension. But there is such hue and cry right now about the status of the Canucks and how they're sort of working out that it's not impossible that Francesco Aquilini, the owner of the Canucks, decides to clean house and get rid of both of them. But I question the security of Doug Wilson in San Jose, but he seems to have a lifetime contract with the ownership there.
Yeah, definitely.
It seemed like if they fire him, he's probably the team president. And I'm sure that Doug Wilson probably has a job for life in San Jose, but at a certain point, there might be time for change in both of those organizations.
Definitely. Now, I got a story that is just it brings me back to the McGillney days. When Russians just came over here. It's and I'm gonna say his name wrong. Anton Panarin, and the whole Russian situation with Putin. Wow. And do you what do you know any more than anything more than what you could read in the papers or anything like that? Because now I believe, was he taking a leave of absence, Mike?
Yeah, he's taking a leave of absence, and there's no indicator of how long that's going to be. It's funny because like I said, we had Kevin Allen on the show today, and he wrote a piece for USA Today about the whole Panarin situation. And the initial reaction was this was retribution by Putin for the things that Panarin said in favor of Navalny, the opposition candidate in Russia who has been jailed. From what I've heard through that article with Kevin and other sources that I've talked to, it may not be something like that Putin put in motion, but people in the Russian hockey world who are friendly to him, who wanted to maybe ingratiate themselves to him. The former current KHL coach and former NHLer Andrei Nazarov was the one who broke this in a Russian article that he supposedly beat up some 18-year-old girl in 2011, and there's been no proof that this happened. Nothing that has been substantiated. And obviously, I think Panarin is a little scared for his family in Russia. So maybe, I don't know the reason why the leave of absence, other than maybe he flew over to Russia to get his family out of there. But it's just it's not a great situation. And I don't like when politics bleeds into sport. I mean, we had the Anthony DeAngelo situation with the Rangers, and now Panarin. It's different things altogether, but it's really sort of crossed the lines from politics into sports, and you never want to see that.
No, I don't. You're right, John. You don't want that. You can't want that. I never. It's so uncomfortable. I can't stand it.
Yeah, this ruins sports.
Yeah, it ruins something that's supposed to be fun and nice
fun, yeah,
and not aggravate. Well, I'm a Leafs fan, so there's been aggravation. The other thing about that, though, boy, like I was telling John on the way here, I just think, and you know, Mike, those days back when those Russians first come over, some of the things, that went on. I remember, and I can't, Mike, you might remember. I can't remember the name of the player, but someone's mother was kidnapped. And
Oleg Tverodosky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was, the story. Cause I think Jeremy Roenick was talking about this the other day, and. Wow, it just brings me back to those days, and it's just, like you say, it's insane. It's insane, and let me do a quick game with you before we end up having to wrap it up here shortly.
Okay.
Because we got only 10 minutes left,
10 minutes.
And I'm very happy, Mike, that you stayed with us. This is Mike Agello here.
Thank you so much.
Yep, HockeyBuzz.com. He's a reporter, podcaster, buzzcast. The guy does it all. Pro Hockey Writers of America member, and you go to @Mike in Buffalo for Twitter. You're going to get all this information there and more. So check out that on Twitter. I want to do a quick thing called Pretender or Contender, and you know what? We'll just go around, and then we'll end with Mike because then he'll have the he'll probably have a better. Because it's the guy. We don't know what that
Yeah.
All right,
He's a pro.
all right, let's go with this. Pretender or Contender, the New York Islanders. What do you think, John?
Contender.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I am going to go Pretender, and Mike, what do you think?
Begrudgingly Contender. I think they seem to have the number of the Bruins in the East. They beat them 3 times, so I think they, based on their success in the playoffs last year, they have to be considered a contender to come out of the East.
All right, now, John, let's go with the Winnipeg Jets.
Say contender there.
Okay. See, now for me, the Jets.
They're so.
Yeah. God, I always think that. I'm going to put it at the contenders list, and I'm dying to hear what Mike thinks. Go ahead, Mike.
I will say right now, Pretender. Their defense is fairly weak. They have a fantastic goaltender in Connor Hellebuck, but he needs help. If they go out and trade for defense at the deadline and solidify that, with Scheifele and Dubois as their 1-2 centers, they have a lot of firepower up front, but they need to address defense. If they can do that, then they're a contender. But right now, they're a pretender.
All right. Edmonton Oilers, John.
I'm going to say contender. They could step their game up a little bit, so.
Well, they got a big matchups coming up this week with Toronto, so things could really get crazy if they take care of the Leafs here in their extended play with them. I'm going to say the Oilers. I'm really on the fence on this one. I want to call them a contender. I should call them a contender, and I want to hear what Mike has to say. Mike, what do you think of them?
From the beginning of the season, I've said they're a pretender. They have possibly the worst goaltending tandem in the league in Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith, and their winning streak right now has been based on Mike Smith coming back from injury and playing really well, but he's 41 years old, so I don't know how long that lasts. They're a two-man team. Unfortunately, fortunately for Edmonton fans, their 2 men are the 2 best players in the league in Draisaitl and McDavid. I don't know if they can keep up what they're doing right now. If one of them gets injured, if they have a long slump, when those 2 don't score, they lose. But right now they're scoring like crazy and they're getting good goaltending, so they're winning. I think they're a pretender. I predicted them to miss the playoffs, and I'm sticking with that.
All right. Next one that I have here on the list is the Las Vegas Knights. John?
Oh, they're a contender. They've been in it just about every year. They're always in the Final Four, so
Yeah.
it could be a surprise team this year.
Do you remember when expansion teams were expansion teams? Geez, this team really hit the ground running. I gotta go contender. Mike?
Definitely a contender. I mean, if Edmonton's got the worst goaltending tandem in the league, they may have the best with Robin Lehner and Fleury. And when Lehner was injured, Fleury has been playing fantastic. And I think I'm still questioning a little bit of their defensive depth after having to trade Nate Schmidt because they signed Pietrangelo, but they seem to be well on their way to at least getting to the conference final. It's going to be a tough road for them, but they're really good, so I'd say they're a contender.
Next team we're going to go to, John, we'll start with you, is the Florida Panthers.
I'm going to go contender. They're playing pretty strong right now. I watched a few of their games, and they'll be in the mix.
I'm going to give them as a... This is like to win. And when I'm saying contender or contender, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking like they could make a run to where they're,
Yes.
They go to the Final Four type deal. And I'm going to say a pretender, but it's not. I'm not saying that in a way that should be disparaging to them. Mike, what do you think?
I have them as a pretender. I mean, right now they're leading the Central Division, but I don't think anybody believes that Tampa Bay is not going to come out of that division. No, Florida's had a good year. They've, I think, exceeded expectations. They're getting great goaltending out of Chris Dredger, and not Bobrovsky, which is one guy's making $800,000, the other one's making $10 million. Who do you think is the better goalie? Well, right now the guy who's making $800,000 has been the better goalie, and they're getting good performances out of guys like Huberdeau and Barkov. They're a well-rounded team, but when it comes to the playoffs, I just don't see them. Maybe they get around. They're not going to get to the conference final or the Stanley Cup final.
All right, now a couple more. Boston Bruins.
They're a contender. Probably they'll be in the Final Four.
Yeah, I'm going to go contender also. Mike, what do you think of the Bruins this year?
The Bruins have surprised me. I have them as a contender, although at the beginning of the season I would have said the loss of Chara and the fact that Marchand and Pasternak were coming off surgeries, so you didn't know how good they were going to be. Well, they came back, and they're Marchand and Pasternak. They're two of the best forwards in the league, and they're getting good goaltending out of Rask and Halak, and their defense without Chara has been pretty good. So they're a contender.
All right, we got a couple more. John, and this is probably an easy one, but the Lightning, Tampa Bay.
Contender.
Yeah, same here. Mike, anything you see with Tampa that would say not?
Stanley Cup favorite, no doubt, and they're going to work the system pretty well where Nikita Kucherov is going to come off long-term injury the day that the regular season is over with and play in the playoffs. I would be shocked if it doesn't happen.
Wow. Yeah. Now, on to this. John, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I want to say they're a contender. So
I pass, because if I say anything here, I will have to apologize to a lot of, a whole province probably and country. Mike, I want to hear from you on the leagues. What do you think? We've seen a lot. What do you think?
You're going to curse them if you make a prediction.
Yeah.
I would have to say right now, based on where they are and based on how they're playing and based on the division that they're playing, that they are a contender. But I do think that there are a lot of question marks, as you know, until Freddie Anderson wins a series in Toronto. That will be the big question. Whether the players that need to show up. That's always a question. And whether they will be able to play defense in the playoffs. That is a question. So, it's with a caveat, it's with an asterisk, but I think they're a contender.
All right, Mike, I got one last thing before I let you go, and this is because I forgot his name, and I just want to know if you know anything about him. I've heard innuendos and I've heard rumors that I don't know what they are. Jonathan Toews, do you know anything about him? I don't know. I mean, what do you know? What do you know about him? Anything?
Again, we brought it up on the Buzzcast today, and it's eerily silent about Toews, and that concerned all of us because there has been no indicator like, oh, he's on the ice and he's feeling better and he's getting ready to come back. Nothing. And the Blackhawks have played really well this year without him, but obviously if they were able to get a healthy Jonathan Toews back, they would take a jump to a higher level. But the silence is deafening, and that's never a good sign. So I'm hoping that maybe he comes back for the second half of the season, but there's been nary a peep out of Chicago regarding his status.
Yeah, we've heard nothing about him.
Nothing
I mean, the only thing I've heard is I'm not even going to say it, horrible innuendos and stuff that we have no idea about health-wise. And boy, and the funny thing is about that team, they're playing so well, and Kane and these guys.
Yeah, for years and years.
Well, this team, I think they sent out letters to tell their season ticket holders, expect us not to be any good.
Yeah.
I mean, and stuff. And this team, impressive, right, Mike? I mean, the Blackhawks.
Yeah, Kane has stepped up. I mean, I think that he's probably a Hart Trophy candidate. He has stepped up really well this year, and they're getting offense from guys who they signed as free agents out of Europe, like Pius Suter. And Kubalik, who had a breakout last year, was one of the Calder Trophy nominees. He's playing well. DeBrincat, who a lot of teams passed up in the first round of the 2016 draft. He's just because he was small, but he's a really good player. And a lot of guys who have just kicked in offense with them, and they're getting better than expected goaltending out of a guy I didn't even know who he was, Kevin Lankinen. So they're really playing well. I don't know whether they can hang on and make the playoffs. unless Taves does come back. But yeah, they're playing really well.
Mike, I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight, and you stayed the whole hour. That's really nice of you to do that for us.
Thank you again, Mike.
Mike, I want to ask you if I'm going to reach out again to you, and because we're going to want to talk to you the closer we get to deadlines and everything else. And I appreciate this, Mike. And
John,
remember Mike Eichel at hockeybuzz.com. You can go to the Buzzcast is great. He just told you about Kevin Allen, and it's always good. And then you can catch him at Mike in Buffalo. I'm telling you, if you like hockey, you like inside stuff, real stuff, not nonsense, you go to Mike at Mike in Buffalo, and you'll get it up to the second. Mike, I appreciate this.
Thank you again.
John, anytime. Thank you very much.
Take care, Mike.
Have a good night.
And that was Mike Eichel with us. Geez, what a wealth of knowledge that we got out of Mike. And I cannot wait to continue our relationship with Mike because
for sure.
He's I'm telling you, he came from, like he said, how he started this and where it came from and where he is today. Really incredible. He got right in there, and he's going into locker rooms and stuff. He deserves a ton of credit, and he's knowledgeable, and he gives you. I've never gotten anything from him that was nonsense.
Yeah.
That you're saying just some crazy. You know how rumors get.
Oh yeah.
And you don't hear that out of him. We got to give our picks real quick before we wrap it up. We're tied. We got 3. I got 3 wins, 3 losses. So do you. You go ahead first, and then I will give my selection before we sign off.
Okay, tonight I'm taking Boston over the Rangers. For tomorrow, Buffalo over Philly.
Oh, that's got to be a big dog too.
And Toronto over Edmonton.
Stop. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, always a Toronto over. You always
gotta be nice.
I never take them. All right, I got 2, and they're all tomorrow. I got Winnipeg minus 103 against Montreal. I thought that was a good price, so I'm going to go with Winnipeg. And I'm going. This is going to be a decent game. I'm going with Florida plus 105 over Carolina. I'm just liking the money.
Yeah.
I like the money. I like the fact that these are. Well, I think there could be a toss-up game, but I like the money. I like when I don't have to lay big money, to get half of the money back.
Do you have any NBA picks tonight?
Do you?
Sure.
What do you got?
I got the Lakers over Portland and Knicks over Indiana for tomorrow.
And I think LA's -5 tonight. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
I was looking at that. I have nothing. I didn't look at the NBA at all, and I should have. But I'll come back with them next week. So, great show tonight, John. Excellent.
Very good show tonight.
Excellent show tonight. I like I said, I cannot wait to the fact that Gold Getters here, Gold Medal Media, we have a guy like Mike Eichel on our list. We can call him at any time, and he'll come in. And when things are breaking, we get to the playoffs, you get to the trade deadline and free agency. So we have him, and you can't get that anywhere else, by the way. You're not going to get that anywhere else that tries to do a podcast in Western New York. No. You're not going to get it. You'll get him on WGR, but that's a major state, a major 50,000 watt thing. We got him though, and I'm happy. And we're going to bring more. Yeah, we're going to bring more. We're going to bring more guys. We have some other friends, me and John. We're going to bring them out to you. So we will be back next Friday night. And, of course, sports never ends. It just keeps on going, so we always got something new to talk about.
24/7. It's on the rise, so this time of year.
Only 3 games tonight, too, but they're good ones. Actually, I'll say that real quick. Bruins Rangers at 7, the Kings and Minnesota Wild at 8 p.m., and the Colorado Avalanche against the Arizona Coyotes.
And you got exhibition baseball starting up too. So
next week we'll have to talk baseball too. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you on Friday.
Have a good night.
Take care, guys.